Greetings. I'm Alice, a 32-year-old soon-to-be mom, eagerly anticipating the arrival of my baby. Today finds my husband and me on our way to his family's house, a cozy 30-minute drive from our apartment. We make this trip regularly, usually a couple of times a month. Today's visit is prompted by the enticing news that my mother-in-law is whipping up her renowned apple pie. She's a kind soul, having endured the loss of her husband just last year. Despite the hardship, she's bounced back and is now eagerly awaiting the arrival of her grandchild. However, not everyone shares in our joy about the impending arrival of our child. One such person is my sister-in-law, Brianna. According to my mother-in-law, Brianna tied the knot 6 years before us, yet there's been no sign of her own pregnancy. Despite undergoing fertility treatments for the past 2 years, she's still without a child. The mounting pressure has left her noticeably irritable as of late. My mother-in-law had advised us to steer clear of Brianna whenever possible, so we usually timed our visits to coincide with her absence. Yet, much to her surprise, Brianna made an unexpected appearance on this particular day. "Long time no see, Alice. You've put on some weight, haven't you? You're not just lazing around at home because you're pregnant, right? You look like a seal, all round and ready to roll down a hill," she remarked sharply, catching me off guard. "Hey sis, how can you say something like that right off the bat? She's 9 months pregnant, of course her belly's gonna be big. You're gonna make enemies with pregnant women all over the world talking like that," my husband interjected, coming to my defense and leaving me momentarily speechless. "Oh, please, I'm just thinking about Alice, okay? It's tough if a pregnant woman gets too heavy, you know. I just want Alice to be aware of her responsibilities as a mother," she asserted. Knowing that arguing back would only escalate the situation, I held my tongue. "Thank you, sister-in-law. You're right, I'll be more mindful," I responded in a conciliatory tone, though she huffed in dissatisfaction. "Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can be lazy. So start cleaning this house right now. You're lacking exercise, right? You can at least do that much," she insisted, thrusting a broom and dustpan into my hands. But after being reprimanded by both my mother-in-law and my husband for her behavior, she retreated to an upstairs room in a sulk. "I'm sorry, Alice. She just turned up unannounced. I asked her to leave." My mother-in-law apologized with a regretful expression. "It's all right, mother-in-law. I'm not bothered," I reassured her. "I'm sorry, Alice. That's just how my sister is," my husband chimed in, echoing his mother's apology. Following that, we enjoyed a pleasant time together, relishing the apple pie my mother-in-law had baked and sipping tea. We even called out to Brianna, but received no response. Despite our concerns, she never made an appearance. Little did I know that a harrowing incident was about to unfold just days later. I found myself at my in-laws' house alone, needing to speak with my mother-in-law. As I entered through the unlocked front door, I encountered Brianna in the living room. "Sister-in-law, what brings you here? I thought you had to work today," I inquired. "I wasn't feeling up to it, so I took the day off. And I must say, I'm surprised to see you here. You interrupted my cleaning last time. Now, please get back to work," she retorted, thrusting the broom and dustpan into my hands. To avoid any confrontation, I began cleaning despite feeling discomfort since early morning. As I worked, the pain in my stomach intensified. Just as I contemplated taking a break, my sister-in-law delivered a forceful kick to my abdomen, causing my water to break. The agony surged and I collapsed on the floor. "Help, someone please," I cried out in pain, fumbling for my phone to dial my mother-in-law. "The baby, in trouble?" I managed to gasp before blacking out. When consciousness returned, I found myself in a hospital bed, an IV coursing fluids into my arm, and the warmth of an electric blanket enveloping my body. "Where am I? What about my baby?" I attempted to rise, but the ache in my abdomen thwarted my efforts. To my astonishment, my once prominent belly had diminished considerably, leaving me bewildered. Summoning the nurse with the press of a button, I sought answers. The nurse arrived, explaining that my water had broken, necessitating an emergency cesarean delivery. Though my infant was premature, they assured me of the baby's stable condition within an incubator. Upon hearing the news, my mother-in-law and husband, who had hurried to the hospital, wore expressions colored with fury, mirroring my own shock. Resolving to visit my child once my strength returned, I devoted myself to rest, striving to hasten my recovery. The following day, an unexpected pair invaded my hospital room without a courteous knock. My sister-in-law, the very same who had inflicted harm upon me, along with her husband, barged in with audacious entitlement. I scowled at their brazen intrusion, a sense of foreboding settling over me as they proposed a shocking notion. Let's settle this. We'll compensate you. Their suggestion sent a shiver down my spine, and when I declined, they launched a barrage of offensive remarks towards my weary countenance, still recovering from the cesarean procedure. Anger boiled within me as I contemplated the ordeal my daughter had endured at their hands. A settlement? Is this a joke? I won't be bought off. I'll ensure you face the consequences, I declared, inciting their wrath as they hurled insults at me. What? How dare you speak to us like that? We're offering a solution, showing mercy. Shouldn't you be grateful, Alice? Have your parents not taught you to respect your elders? Just agree quietly, my brother-in-law chimed in, aggravating the tension. Lost in our heated exchange, oblivious to our surroundings, the door suddenly swung open with a loud creak, startling us all. I've heard everything. I'm sorry, but I have absolutely no intention of settling. My husband's commanding presence, accentuated by his sturdy frame and towering stature, resonated in his deep voice. They appeared caught off guard by his sudden appearance, their confidence shaken. Ah, long time no see, Finn. It's a coincidence to meet you here. My brother-in-law attempted to feign casualness, though his tense expression betrayed him. Indeed, quite the coincidence, my husband responded evenly, his tone masking the tension in the room. I didn't expect to meet you here, and I never imagined I'd hear such words from you too. I would appreciate an explanation. We were all in the room when they said it, so there's no room for any excuses. I voiced my disbelief, feeling a mix of shock and betrayal. Hey, don't be so angry, Finn. It's not like we had ill intentions. We just feel bad for what we did to Alice. That's why we're offering money, hoping to settle this out of court, my sister-in-law explained, her voice trembling with guilt. But my husband's fury remained unabated. The one who decides whether this will be a settlement or not is Alice, not you. Besides, do you think this is a situation that can be solved with money? Alice had an emergency C-section, the baby's in an incubator. You endangered both their lives. Do you even understand that? My husband erupted, his emotions boiling over. I, too, found it impossible to forgive them simply because they offered compensation. I echo my husband's sentiments. No amount of money can rectify this. You'll face the consequences of your actions. My sister-in-law seemed to believe that throwing money at us would absolve them of their guilt. But this situation was far from simple. Thankfully, both my daughter and I, though she was in an incubator, were safe. But had there been any misstep, our situation could have been dire. It appeared my sister-in-law was completely unaware of this, a fact that likely troubled my brother-in-law as well. Reflecting on this, I realized I couldn't easily forgive them or entertain the notion of a settlement. My sister-in-law, upon hearing my stance, erupted, her voice rising. What do you mean? This is all her fault. She knew I couldn't conceive, yet she flaunted her pregnancy in front of me. Was that some sort of taunt? I was furious, and I did what I did to ensure she wouldn't dare to provoke me like that again. Now I understood why she had lashed out at me, but there was a perplexing detail that didn't add up. I hadn't crossed paths with her frequently during my pregnancy, and whenever we did meet, she promptly retreated to her room, avoiding any interaction. So how had she witnessed me rubbing my belly? That remained a mystery. Regardless, her actions couldn't be excused. Neither my husband nor I harbored any inclination to forgive her. I recognize that you may be facing difficulties, but that doesn't justify your actions towards Alice. Regardless of the circumstances, endangering lives is never justified. My husband reiterated the obvious, attempting to reason with them. However, they seemed disinterested, each avoiding eye contact and appearing eager to conclude the conversation swiftly. It was evident they sought a quick resolution. Seeing their lack of remorse, I felt my condition deteriorate. Are we done here? I've just undergone surgery and I'm feeling unwell. If you continue causing a disturbance in this room, I'll have to call the police. Arguing wasn't going to resolve anything, and conversing with them felt too draining in my current state of recovery. After my husband ushered them out, I let out a heavy sigh. We had ample evidence as my husband had recorded their conversation. My mother-in-law, too, was unable to contain her fury over her daughter's actions, which had endangered both my life and that of her grandchild. And so, we made the decision to press charges against my sister-in-law. We filed a complaint with the police. Following her arrest, negotiations commenced through legal channels. However, my sister-in-law adamantly maintained her innocence to her lawyer. I've done nothing wrong. This woman has been flaunting her pregnancy in front of me, causing me emotional distress while I struggle with infertility. She's not blameless, so she should consider settling. Initially willing to offer any sum of money, she later shifted her stance, asserting her innocence and suggesting we sweep the incident under the rug as a mutual fault. Though visibly intimidated upon encountering my husband in the hospital, she now dug in her heels, refusing to pay. Little did she know, our conversation in the hospital room had been recorded. When the evidence was presented, both their faces paled in realization. Even with such clear evidence, you still claim innocence. That won't fly, I remarked firmly, enduring their insults and refusing to entertain a settlement. In a fit of rage, my sister-in-law hurled the coffee from before her at us. Fortunately, it was cold, sparing us from burns. Their outrageous conduct and language in the office led to additional charges, compounding their troubles and necessitating higher compensation amounts. Attempting to soothe his irate wife, my brother-in-law exited the office with the assault charges against me and the current incident. The demanded compensation from my sister-in-law had escalated significantly. Upon informing my mother-in-law of the events, she expressed deep remorse, pledging, "I'm so sorry for my daughter's actions. You need not consider a settlement. I'll ensure she faces the consequences." Tears welled in her eyes as she apologized sincerely. I couldn't shake the feeling of dismay at witnessing a grown adult causing so much anguish to their own parents. My heart went out to my mother-in-law, bearing the brunt of her daughter's actions. Ultimately, my sister-in-law was ordered to pay a substantial compensation. Stunned by the sum, she bombarded me with calls, insisting we reduce it due to our shared culpability. I couldn't fathom how she could make such a plea after everything she had done. No matter how incessantly she called, our stance remained unwavering. No reduction, no settlement. Frankly, her calls became a nuisance, prompting me to request she cease. Her persistence led to me snapping at her, triggering her to lose her temper. Unbelievably, she stormed into my apartment, demanding my presence. "Hey, I know you're in there. Get out here now, coward," she shouted. As I lay on the sofa, still recovering from surgery, her relentless pounding on the door and the barrage of insults echoed through the apartment. "What in the world are you doing? Is everything all right? Your shouting is disturbing everyone. Please stop," I shouted back, though she persisted in her noisy tirade. Despite the late hour, there were elderly residents and families with young children in the building, and her disturbance was unwelcome. I couldn't help but wonder if she even considered the possibility of disturbing people who might be sleeping. With my husband still at work since my hospital discharge, I had been managing visits to my daughter while dealing with her unexpected arrival and the ensuing chaos. I was at my breaking point. "No matter how many times you come here, my stance won't change. Please refrain from visiting anymore," I implored, despite my weakened state. However, my sister-in-law remained fixated on a settlement, seemingly indifferent to my concerns. "I didn't intend for things to escalate like this, you know? Your actions pushed us to this point. It's audacious of you to conceive before me. Shouldn't you have been more thoughtful and waited until after us?" she retorted defensively. It appeared that she perceived pregnancy as some sort of contest. While I don't believe pregnancy should be seen as a competition or that conceiving first is more honorable, my sister-in-law, who struggled with infertility for years, seemed to view it through that lens. Though everyone holds different values, it's never justified to inflict harm on others. I understand your frustration about not being able to conceive, but that's no excuse for causing harm to others. I can't forgive you for putting my daughter in danger. You'll be held accountable for your actions, I asserted firmly. Above all, her actions had endangered my daughter, which was unforgivable. Just then, the distant sound of sirens pierced the air. "Well, if you're banging on someone's door and shouting at this hour, it's only natural that the police would be called," I remarked coolly. "What do you mean the police are here? Open the door. You have to hide me." Despite my sister-in-law's frantic pleas, I had no intention of shielding her. As the police arrived and began their inquiries, I provided my account of the situation. Just then, my husband returned home, and I quickly briefed him on the unfolding events. Recalling previous incidents, my husband decided to divulge the full truth to the authorities. Consequently, the police escorted my sister-in-law away in their vehicle. Later that evening, my brother-in-law contacted me to announce his decision to divorce my sister-in-law and implored me not to entangle him in the matter. A rather self-serving plea. Evidently, one of my husband's colleagues had overheard my brother-in-law's conversation at the hospital where I was hospitalized. Subsequently, workplace gossip circulated among female employees, leading to a tarnished reputation for my brother-in-law. Matters escalated, and the narrative eventually reached the attention of the HR department. Faced with the inevitable consequences, my brother-in-law opted for transparency, confessing to his misdeeds. Consequently, he was informed that he could no longer remain employed in the company and would be transferred to a regional office. Though he doesn't want to be dragged into any more trouble, I simply can't handle her problems anymore. Another slip-up and I'll lose my job. Please spare me from any more complications, he asserted before abruptly ending the call. Since then, he's remained silent. In the aftermath, we received a significant settlement from my sister-in-law. To ensure she couldn't intrude into our lives again, we changed our phone numbers and relocated. Even if she were to face dire circumstances and seek assistance, she'd have no means of locating us. Several months later, my daughter was discharged from the hospital unscathed, thriving, and healthy. Rumors circulated that my sister-in-law hadn't fared much better. Initially relying on the hospitality of friends, she overstayed her welcome, neglecting her shared expenses until she was ultimately evicted. Now, with nowhere to call home and debts looming, she's scraping by with part-time work.